Everybody, this is Melissa Clothier, and here I am with Governor Rick Perry.
One more time.
One more time.
This time we're up in the cold northeast Washington, D.C. Of course, I guess we could be in the cold southwestern United States today,
you got
too.
snow.
Yeah, it's chilly in Texas, but tomorrow we're going to hit mid-60s and then 70s on Sunday. So hopefully we're out of this little deep freeze.
Yes, hopefully. You don't expect to go to D.C. for it to thaw out.
Really?
Yeah. Anyway, so CPAC this year, you are now the head of the Republican Governors Association.
Right.
And I'm guessing, I don't know, that your message is going to be, is it something on behalf of that organization or?
I hope it's on behalf of most freedom-loving Americans, and whether they're part of the Republican Governors Association or not. I would suspect that almost anyone who's an RGA member is going to be saying, right on, Governor, that's a great message, because I'm going to be talking about freedom and liberty, freedom from over-taxation, over-litigation, over-regulation. I'm going to be talking about pushing back on Washington, D.C., decentralizing that power that has been consolidated for nearly 100 years. You know, in my book, Fed Up, I talk about just that phenomenon, and then how to get ourselves out of it. You know, certainly last November's election was a great first start, but the hard work's in front of us. It is keeping those congressmen's feet to the fire. It's not letting them go, well, you know, it really wasn't $100 billion we were talking about. It's only $30 billion. It's like, no, sir, this is what you said. Now, let's do that. And the idea that we can't cut $100 billion out of this whale of a budget is just, it's nonsense. Yes, you can. The states are having to make reductions in spending. You're having to make reductions in spending. I mean, the families out there that are suffering because Washington has spent too much money. That's what this message is about. And actually, it's a message. It's a happy message. It's a happy message of hope and bright days ahead of us, because we saw Americans really come alive and energized, and the tea parties all across the country, and you know, our blogosphere, and how we all impacted this election cycle, and I don't think it's going to go away. I'm excited about what I'm seeing out there, and CPAC. You know, look at the people that turned out for CPAC. Huge turnout for this. Conservative fiscal policy is the main line here.
Okay, speaking of regulations, Obamacare is starting to become implemented.
Yep.
So another burden on the state. The EPA has been
They've targeted
awful
Texas.
And they've targeted Texas.
Sure.
There's just no question about it.
Absolutely.
And they're shameless about it.
Yeah.
They've been, the Obama administration has been rebuffed on both counts and has refused to abide by rulings, both
Right.
EPA ruling and the
courts.
The courts. And like Obamacare, we're going ahead with it. Doesn't matter that it's stopped.
Yeah.
So what can you do when you have a federal government that says we don't care?
Well, going through the federal courts, our system still works. Sometimes it goes a little slower than I like to go, but our system still works. And if on Obamacare, the issue of whether or not you can force Americans to buy health insurance, 29 states have signed on, and that's going up to the Supreme Court. And once that court ruling comes down, and I feel comfortable that this Supreme Court, maybe a 5-4 decision, which most of them will be, but that they'll find that 5-4 that Washington, D.C. can't mandate that the states, that the people buy insurance any more than a state can mandate that everybody's got to buy a gun.
Right. That's an interesting
Isn't that
lawsuit.
an interesting lawsuit?
Yeah, I know.
There? I love
you like
that.
Do you think something like that will happen in Texas?
Well, here's what I think is going to happen in the state of Texas. For instance, we're suing the EPA right now for their clear coming into Texas, and there's a number of issues here. I'm not a lawyer, but I know what's right. And you can't just come into one state and decide that you're going to say, you know what, this has been happening for 17 years, but we don't like it. And we cleaned up our air more than any other state in the nation during the decade of the 2000s. Lowered our ozone by better than 25%, lowered our nitrous oxide levels by 56%, and we created more jobs than any other state in the nation. We ought to be getting an award. They ought to be holding us up saying, hey, you other states, this is what you all are supposed to be aspiring to do. But instead, they're coming in here and saying, you know what, we don't like the way y'all are doing this. We're going to take it over because, you know, we've run the federal government so well. And,
right.
Yeah.
Okay, so like the national press is trying to make a parallel between California and Texas. Both states have a debt problem right now.
No, that's incorrect.
Okay.
That is totally incorrect. Texas does not have a debt problem.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, the debt burden for Texans is one of the lowest in the country per capita. It's really interesting to me that people that I thought were supposed to be rather skilled and smart don't understand the budgeting process in the state of Texas. We budget every 2 years, and here's how much money we have coming in,
right,
and we build a budget around that. Just because we spent the money 2 or 4 or 6 years ago. As a matter of fact, in 2003, we spent less general revenue money in Texas than we did the previous 2 years. Nobody wrote about that.
Right.
In 2009, we spent less general revenue money than we spent the biennium before. Mm-hmm. So we can't have a debt in Texas because we have a balanced budget amendment that says you will not deficit spend in Texas. So trying to compare Texas to California is like apples and oranges. Now, you know, the media I understand why the media is trying to do that, because there is a conservative governor in Texas that has created an oasis for business people, and people have voted with their feet for the last decade in record numbers, and people are coming to the state of Texas because they know that freedom and liberty is still alive and well there. There's still a land of opportunity in this country. It's called Texas. Right. And they can't stand that in New York or in LA. So those mainstream media types, they got to figure out a way to, well, let's see now, let's, you know, Perry's got that big debt down there in Texas. There are people, I had a reporter call it a $30 billion debt. I expect somebody to get it up to $50 billion because all it is a wish list. I mean, groups and legislators or even state agencies may wish they had this much money, and someone says from that amount down to what you have in resources coming in is a debt. It's not a debt. We will balance our budget without raising taxes, and Texas will be better off for it, and the people of Texas will be substantially better off for it. And the mainstream media will keep writing their stories.
Right. Well, it seems clear to me that what they're trying to do is that California and Texas, people are saying Texas is great, but they're trying to minimize it because of their insecurity about the problems.
Here's my deal. People vote with their feet. And people know where you can live free. They know where you can have more liberty. They know where you can have less taxes, less regulation, less frivolous lawsuits. And they're going to continue to move to those places. Texas will always be one of those places.
Thank you so much for joining me.
You're welcome, Melissa. Good